in Kansas anymore.
You have my curiosity.
Are you telling me you built a time machine?
The Force may be with you. Assemble.
Welcome back to Get Real, the podcast where we get real about all of our favourite pop culture films and TV shows. I am our leading lady, Chris, and with me, as always, is my back from the dead co-host, Sam.
There was a distinct lack of that in this film.
No, there wasn't. It was in there twice.
Oh, I was I'm an idiot. Did I fall asleep in the cinema? No.
So, if you hadn't guessed by that, we're talking all about Wonder Woman,
Yes.
1984, or WW84, however you want to refer to the film.
Or is it Wonder Woman 84? What's the actual official title for this film? Oh, it is Wonder Woman
on screen it said WW84, but now I'm seeing all the headlines are saying Wonder Woman 1984.
It is Wonder Woman 1984.
Okay. But
Okay.
it just says WW84 on everything.
That is the
Promotional-wise.
distinct. That is the official title of this film. And
The
also,
officiale.
Chris, this is our official 1 year episode of the pod.
We did it! We did it, everybody. Take a bow. Pat yourselves on the back. We did it.
I'm going to hand you
Sam,
your award.
I didn't get you. Thank you.
Here's your award for doing a year of podcasting, Chris. There you go.
Jesus Christ, that's heavy. Oh,
Oh, I should have pre-warned
I'd
you,
like
sorry.
to thank Jesus. I'd like to thank everybody that helped this get made. The casting director who hired me, thank you so much. My wife and kids that my girlfriend doesn't know about.
What?
Sorry, what?
I would like to thank the pub we sat in those many, many moons ago when
mean
we
me
said,
local?
yeah, when we said, wouldn't it be a good idea to start a podcast? And here we are, mate. We've kept to something for a year.
We have a full year.
We
This lasted longer than any of the YouTube channels did.
It's been a good time, and also it's been Christmas. So Merry Christmas, everyone!
Merry Christmas.
And it's New Year this week, so have a nice New Year as well. While we're mentioning it right up at the top.
Also, I didn't get you an anniversary present for the podcast, but I'd like to say well done. It was so successful. We've got a second podcast.
Oh,
We've got a spin-off. Sam, our show was good enough that we got a spin-off.
gee, we had people.
Troy and Abed would be going mental.
We had two friends that thought we want to do that as well because we did it, or maybe they wanted to do it the whole time. I don't know.
We were trendsetters.
We're trendsetters. We set the trend of a podcast like 5 years too late. That's what we've done.
We sat in my local and we were like just having dinner and they're like, we should start a podcast. Like, we were talking about our theories of Rise of Skywalker before we went to see it, weren't we?
Yeah.
But here we are. A year later, we'll tell you the origin story. And we were like, yeah, like, we could talk so much about this. And I was like, I've already had ideas for names for a podcast. And you were like, we should do a podcast. And I was like, should we do a podcast? And you were like, we should do a podcast.
It was like
And then we literally just started like opening notes, start writing random names for the podcast.
Yeah. The thing is that we were already pretty much doing it, just not in front of a microphone and talking to each other. It was just like we would talk that long about films and stuff anyway, and speculative on stuff. And
It was just normally while we were playing COD.
yeah, it was literally just while we were playing COD. But wow, what a time it's been, mate. It's been a good time, and here's to many more years, hopefully.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to that, bro.
Let me get two things together. I can make a cheers. There you go.
Did you break something?
No, I tried to hit my mug with a toothpick and it didn't do anything.
A toothpick.
Here we are.
Anyway.
But we're also, just a heads up, we're recording this a week early because we want to have a bit of time off over Christmas. So we're actually recording this on, 5 days before Christmas. But yeah, we're
on
doing
the
that.
5 days of Christmas, Get Real gave to me a podcast about Wonder Woman.
So yeah, we had the chance to watch Wonder Woman nice and early in the UK, which was a nice surprise. In the cinema. We went to the bloody
Fuck
cinema.
that HBO bullshit. see it on the big screen like it was intended to be. I got you that one, didn't it?
Yeah, I just wasn't expecting you to get so animated over it. Jesus.
A quick little bit before we talk about Wonder Woman 84. The only bit of news that has come out between the last two episodes, because we're recording these pretty much back to back and I've only just seen the article, Patty Jenkins has said that originally she planned for a much different ending to the original Wonder Woman, but Warner Brothers pushed for a bigger fight sequence with Ares at the end of the original. She said she grew to love it, but it wasn't what she wanted. And it seems to be like the most divisive thing about the original film to most of the audience. And she kind of really agreed with what most people were saying.
That's
apparently, it was going to be much smaller. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just reading to see if they gave any details on what the original ending was meant to be.
I was just making sure you were still happy about the story you were telling, and just quickly making sure you weren't just all of a sudden going to be like, and it's all bullshit. Sorry.
No, I was just making sure that we didn't have like, oh, this is what would have happened. No. So yeah. I mean, I liked the original, but I think that final fight was definitely the weakest part of the film.
Well, it was the big grey monster CGI, lots of smoke clouds.
Exactly.
Business on it, so...
this film ended very differently to that.
Very different,
I will say.
Very different.
Shall we jump right into Wonder Woman 84? Non-spoilers to begin with.
Well,
There's a brand new film out in cinemas, guys, with spoilers.
Well, do you want to try and predict what the news would be next week? Because we're not doing the news.
20,000 more new Star Wars series have been announced. We've got more leaked set photos from Spider-Man and...
the population of planet Earth is reprising its role as the population of planet Earth in Spider-Man 3.
You're a Spider-Man, you're a Spider-Man, you're a Spider-Man.
Oh, God. Right. Anyway, yeah, Wonder Woman 1984, let's go. We'll do spoilers, then we will do non-spoilers. Oh, no, the other way around. We'll do non-spoilers and then spoilers.
Yes.
Quick, switch off the podcast. You can't listen to it yet. You have to come back.
Just skip 40 minutes into the future. Listen to that bit.
Oh, God.
No, don't do that. That'll be spoilers. Don't do that.
Time codes are below anyway, so you'll know when we go spoilery.
Okay. Brief overview without giving anything really away. Wonder Woman's back. We've got the new setting in the 80s. We've got new characters. We've got Barbara, also known as Cheetah. And we've got Maxwell Lord, which was a very different version of Maxwell Lord, I'll say, from what I know of the character. Mm-hmm. Yes, a rollicking 80s, like, beautiful visually.
Yeah.
Like, all the 80s colour palette instead of the dreary World War One setting. Yeah. Where do we start talking without mentioning spoilers? Should we talk about the performances? What did we think?
I mean, maybe your overall... Should we talk overall take on the film first, maybe?
Yeah, go on. You told me before we recorded this that I might be surprised by what you thought, so I want to hear what you thought first.
I'm a bit scared to be brutally honest about this film, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Right, okay. So let me just get this straight first. I enjoyed the film, right? My thing is I didn't think it was as good as the first one. That's where I kind of sit on it. And when I say the first one, I don't mean the great big CGI Ares fight. I mean like the first part of the film and the
rest of it.
Yeah. I mean, like
the actual heartwarming journey and everything before we got a big CGI monster.
The lead up to that, the bit where Diana steps up out of the trench and stuff. I just felt like there were like a lot more iconic. Well, I won't say iconic moments because there was a lot of iconic moments in this one, but to me there was some more standout moments in my head that for me were like a lot more, I don't know, just resonated a lot more. So yeah, I did really enjoy the film. I thought the characters were really interesting. I really liked, I really enjoyed Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord. Really enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is about it that fell a little bit flat for me. I think it was, and we'll get into it probably in spoilers, but I think maybe the the stakes of the film, but also why those stakes. And I think maybe the MacGuffin of the film was probably the thing that kind of disappointed me just a little bit, maybe. And I just didn't feel it was as strong. But overall, me kind of getting that criticism out of the way a little bit, I really enjoyed it. I really liked the time of where it was set. The action sequences were good. The humor was good. Yeah, it was a nice film to go back in and watch at the cinema that wasn't Tenet.
Yeah,
because you
a lot more digestible.
Yeah, exactly.
After not being in the cinema for a while.
Yeah, exactly. It was great. It was great as a cinema experience. It's all a very, very good film. I just felt the first one was better. That's where I'm at. I think that also is off the back of waiting for these films to come out for such a long time, and kind of I think what I've maybe done with myself is like I've really kind of heightened my anticipation for the films that we've had to wait a long time for, maybe. And then obviously I've mentally probably set that bar really, really high. Where had this came out freshly after the trailers had been out, when it was initially meant to have been released, maybe my expectations of this probably would have been a lot more aligned. So I'm kind of putting that criticism back on myself as well. So
fair enough.
I'm already doing it before you listeners are doing it to me. So and I know you really rated the film, mate. So what did you think of the film?
I really enjoyed it. I do agree with like some of the things that you said. I think I preferred the first one because I loved like the exploration of the characters in the first one and stuff like that. I didn't like how the first one ended. I preferred the ending of this one.
I agree. I agree with you there.
I like the message that was in this film, and I liked you could tell that like it was a woman writing women and female friendships, and it was very much a different battle and a different lesson for Diana to overcome in this film, which I liked. I think the issue was like pacing felt a little bit strange at certain points because of the stakes, like you said. I do agree with you with that, and like the stakes felt, because it was quite such a personal story a lot of the time, that when we saw these massive stakes, it felt a little bit strange. Like it felt like it was a tiny story, but a massive story at the same time. I really, really did enjoy it. I think the first one holds a bigger place in my heart at the moment. Maybe on a subsequent viewing of this one, I might prefer this one. I thought the performances were great. The writing was great. Like I said, maybe I don't necessarily think it was pacing as much. I think it was trying to come to grasp with like the stakes of everything and stuff like that. I thought some of the things they pulled out in this film were so unexpected for a comic book fan, doing certain things and stuff that like I just didn't think were gonna happen. And then when they happened, like I know you saw me like being like, "Wait, what?
Yeah."
What?
Yeah, there's a lot of moments that I kind of like looked over at you and I was a bit like, what the hell's going on?
And like at that point, like after a certain one, I was like, they could literally do anything in this film. And then I was like throwing out wild speculations to you just there, like, oh, imagine if this character showed up here. And then I was like, okay, no, nobody showed up there, and I should have expected that.
Yeah.
I think it was definitely a solid film, and it was a brilliant film to go back to the cinema to watch. I would say go see it on the cinema for the spectacle of it. What I will say about this film is it was so heartwarming. That was something that you didn't get a lot of in the first one, because it was like showing like the horrors of war and like man's world and stuff like that, whereas this one was able to be a bit more like earnest and like explore love a lot more. It led to some really beautiful moments, which on a big screen really hit home.
Yeah, it really hammers home, and maybe this is kind of like the fact that this film really hammers home its point across like various times throughout the movie. And when I say hammers it home, it tries to be subtle and then it kind of spells it out to you
Yeah.
at moments. And I don't know whether maybe that part kind of felt like when I was watching it, it kind of makes you assume that the film doesn't expect you to know it unless it spells it out to you. I don't know whether as a viewer it was kind of like trying to be like, oh, and just in case you didn't know, this is what the
I
meaning of the film.
literally thought the exact same thing
Yeah.
while I was watching it. I thought, like, at certain points, I was like, I like that it's not talking down to the audience. And then when Diana literally repeats a certain line, I was like, okay, that was a little bit like you said, like it treated
Yeah.
the audience a little bit stupid, like they wouldn't have connected the dots. But
Yeah.
I'm also wondering whether they, with this sequel, they realized that there was a more of a younger audience as well there, maybe. So maybe that's what they were going for, making it more accessible, because we saw after the success of the first one that it was really popular with young girls. So maybe they were like, they had that in there, not to talk down to the older audience, but to try and catch the younger audience up.
Yeah, exactly, and it's not a bad thing, you know. It was just how it made me feel watching it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that is like sort of like this might sound a bit offensive to some people, but like as an educated viewer, you might have taken that as like you were being taught down to a bit.
Yeah.
Because I literally had the exact same thought when we were in the screen.
Yeah, but like there's when it hammers home the points that this movie has, like the points that we were talking about how it gets the points across, but those actual points are extremely relevant and topical, and
Yes.
it hammers this film hammers home the points of love, greed, and being content, I think, as well. It hammers kind of those 3 points across.
Being grateful and
Yeah,
like,
definitely great.
gratitude and stuff.
Appreciation and not wanting more than that, and not trying to be greedy. And although it
And also
drills-
self-love as well, like not just love but self-love as well.
yeah, and although it absolutely drills that point home like over and over and over and over again, it's a really good point to have driven across, I think, as well. And it's interesting, like to kind of move on, and the era that it's set in is an interesting era to be using for that as well, because of the examples it actually gives in there.
Yeah, like the
towards the
80s
end.
was such like a generation of like things became accessible to people, and the life and luxury and excess became like the driving force for everyone. Like there's jokes in the film about how everybody wants a Porsche. And like it was like everybody wanted the Miami Vice lifestyle type thing. And like it was a perfect setting, like you were saying, for that sort of narrative to be told.
What did you right? Okay, so that's a lot of talk about the film. So let's obviously Gal Gadot is playing her best Wonder Woman in this. She's just brilliant. There's some bits in here where she has moments of what's the word I'm looking for? Not weakness, but where she's vulnerable almost. Like there's parts where you see a different side to her acting versus what we've seen before.
I think that was something we only really got in like the last act of the first film.
Yeah.
Was that vulnerability to it, and I think this film did a good job of like breaking the character down to like her fundamentals to be able to show the emotion behind the Wonder Woman, like the superpowered Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and also like when that final act, because I'm assuming we're thinking about the same point when we talk about that final act. When that starts to kick in, that moment is that I really, really liked that moment.
Yeah.
I just thought it was really different, and I'm glad that they did something like that with Gal Gadot and Diana Prince.
I think different is a good way of putting it. Like, this is very different to most superhero films. In like, it is more of a morally driven story rather than good versus evil necessarily.
Yeah.
It's like a spectrum of morals and stuff like that, and also like it is a more personal journey. Like it, although like the whole world's at stake, but it's like it doesn't feel like, you know, like World War II, like the world's at war type thing.
Yeah.
It felt more of like people's moralities were at stake. Like once the dust has settled, can people really like be proud of who they were after everything that happened?
Kristen Wiig was really good in this.
Mm-hmm.
She was really. I really enjoyed her Barbara, like especially when you get her early on in the film, and she's got a very kind of distinct personality that I really enjoyed and found really funny. I thought that was really good. Almost
I think it was
questionably, I thought that she was better in the first part of the film than what she was in the second part of the film. But yeah, no, really enjoyed that throughout.
I think like I've seen her do dramatic roles in the past, so I knew she could do dramatic roles and stuff. But I think this was a nice change of pace for her, like having action scenes and like being able to explore more of an evolving character. Excuse me. Because normally like she's either in a comedy where in most comedies characters don't really develop in the sort of one note, or in her dramatic roles she's normally like a secondary character. Whereas this, she was very much in the forefront, and seeing her being able to progress a character, and the changes, and that very much ties into the spoilers and the plot of the film, I guess. But it was a really interesting role, and I think it was a very smart career role for her as well, being able to step out of, you know, like the best friend in a comedy or something like that she's typically known for.
Oh yeah, 100%. Can we talk about Pedro Pascal? Wow,
we can.
He was one of my favorite parts of this film in many, many, many different ways. Like, based on what we've seen from him from Game of Thrones and The Mandalorian, he absolutely flexes his acting in this. Just like
the range that he showed in one film alone, like being like vulnerable, like we said, being like all powerful, being like being able to go from like up there to down there, like in one scene and stuff like that, interacting with different characters and stuff like that. He did do it amazingly, and he didn't like it felt almost effortless.
100%.
I know Charlotte, like, so we went to see it with my girlfriend. She's never seen Pedro Pascal in anything before. She's seen a little bit of The Mandalorian, but she's never seen him take his helmet off or anything like that. So she was like, he was really charismatic in it, and he was like, he seems to play the charismatic characters, doesn't he? Like you said in Game of Thrones and stuff like that. Like he plays the characters where he just gets you on his side and stuff like that. And I think he did really well at like portraying like how a character like Maxwell Lord does the things that he does in this film.
Yeah, he was just so charismatic, and like in ways where he was, you know, he was funny, he was villainous, he was threatening, he was vulnerable, charming. Yeah, just like a really, really like the parts where he was on the screen and he was like progressing the story along. I was like so engrossed. Not to say that obviously I wasn't, but just those parts he really kind of commanded the role.
He was gripping, and it made sense, like his character acting and being like that, like as to why the story unfolds the way that it does. Like he's not just like a one note, like I'm a bad guy, I do bad things all the time type thing. Like we said, like he was a 3-dimensional character, he was charming. Like you can see how somebody like that gets the position that they're at. It's not just like I'm a stereotypical one note bad guy that only does bad things and doesn't care about anything good and stuff like that. Like Pedro Pascal seemed like the perfect casting for that sort of like charismatic with like a dark undertone character.
Yeah, it kind of gave me a bit of you know, the kind of vibes you got from Killmonger in Black Panther,
Yeah,
kind of felt like maybe they were doing a little bit of that, where you
yeah,
kind
definitely.
of you definitely sympathise with the villain a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed that kind of take on it, and I liked how the trailers kind of didn't give you the expectation of that until you went into the film, and then it kind of comes in out of left field a little bit.
Yeah,
So
like
yeah,
straight away, like everything that I thought I knew about the character from the trailers were changed in like his first couple scenes, and then it's seeing like the character develop and stuff like that, which I found really interesting. We got Chris Pine back as well
yeah,
in this.
yeah, that was
Um,
interesting.
it was interesting. I liked how they did his character as well. So obviously, a lot of us were wondering how Steve Trevor was coming back in this film at all. I think the way they worked it was really good, and it served a greater purpose. But I think he was just typical Chris Pine, like charming as always. Like he played Steve Trevor, but with the lightness of not having a war over his head,
Yeah,
which was nice to see.
and I really enjoyed as well, while we were talking about that, I really enjoyed the time period, because it was almost like at parts this was like an 80s film.
Yeah.
That was really cool. Like, especially the first bit we get with Wonder Woman was very much like we were watching an 80s film with
That's
like...
exactly what I thought. It felt
Yeah.
like it was like a classic like mall action scene from an 80s film.
Yeah.
Like it just felt like so many parts of this film just felt you with like it felt comfortable, didn't it? It felt like something familiar but in a new way.
Yeah, there was, like, in terms of like feel good moments, like the winks and stuff, you know what I mean? Like giving that cheeky wink over to like the little girl that she saves and stuff.
It felt like Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger when he's becoming like Action Man or something like that. I
Yeah,
can't remember what the
Turbo
character's
Man.
called. Turbo
Yeah.
Man, that's the one. Like it felt like that, and like it was really interesting to see like, look, we can make like a funny 80s romp, but with a female lead in a modern day setting. Like not in a modern day setting, in a modern day film in an 80s setting.
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah, I guess we could probably get onto spoilers now, right, and talk about some of the big plot points. But yeah, although I've been kind of a little bit critical about this film, it's good. You know what I mean? It's still good.
Yeah.
Go watch it. It's still fantastic. You're still gonna have a great time. I probably just had my expectations a little bit too high. But you will enjoy this movie. It is very much a feel good movie.
I think the criticism is warranted. I don't think it's not like when we left Birds of Prey and like that was getting so much amazing hype and we were like, yeah, it was good, but I don't think it was like worthy of that. Like this is still worthy of like everything that everyone's saying about him, but we're not gonna just jump out the window and say it's perfect in every single way. There were certain things, and I think, like you said, in comparison to the first one, I think I liked some of the things they explored in the first one a lot more. This one definitely felt like it had more to say to a different audience as well. Like we said, like they have got a younger female demographic and stuff like that, and I know Charlotte was really gripped by it and stuff like that, and like I said, it felt like a woman writing good female characters.
Yeah.
So like it was an incredible film, and it's definitely like better than most superhero movies.
Oh,
so although we
yeah.
had like a little bit of criticism, like it wasn't a bad thing at all. Like we're just saying some things were a little bit like peculiar, like
there were some interesting choices in terms
Yeah.
of writing and editing and stuff that maybe weren't as smooth as what you would normally get, but they've done that on purpose.
Yeah, I don't think it didn't harm the overall film. I think
No.
it was just like if like those little tiny creases would have been ironed out, it would have been perfection. Like it was such a good film. Like I would still rate it like, I don't know, like high, like 8.99 out of 10 type thing.
Yeah, and for me, probably more of like an 8 out of 10, like a solid 8. but the original
I'm a
Wonder
massive
Woman.
Wonder Woman fan, so
Yeah. Shall we move on to spoilers then and chat about some of the big moments?
spoilers.
Right. So
Go
what do you want
watch
to
the
talk
film.
about? Well, we need to give people a bit more of a heads up, I guess, don't we?
Yeah, go watch the film. It's coming out on streaming services soon as well. It's coming out on Christmas. Well, it came out on Christmas Day because you're listening to this afterwards. So, I mean, treat yourselves, guys.
Treat yourselves.
Spoilers.
Spoilers territory. Right.
Everybody dies. No, I'm joking.
There's nukes. There's nukes everywhere.
I mean,
There's
there were nukes everywhere.
It's a Cold War. It's like Black Ops Cold War.
It's like Black Ops Cold War. Okay, I didn't mention this in non-spoilers, although I could have mentioned it in non-spoilers. I just didn't get around to it. The music in this was fantastic. Hans Zimmer did the entire score this time. It was great. I wanted a bit more like 80s pop music in it.
Yeah,
That was the one thing.
I felt a bit disappointed by that. I was,
Especially after the trailer.
yeah. You had what did you have in the trailer? You had what is it?
Flock of Seagulls, isn't it?
Sorry, Flock of
Flock of
Seagulls.
Seagulls? The band, yeah.
Yeah, probably. You're probably right.
I think it was. You get me confused now. Wonder Woman.
It's it goes
84 trailer. Yeah. It was the same one that they used in. It might not be. Blue Monday, not Flock of Seagulls.
Blue Monday.
Blue
That's the
Monday.
one.
It was the same one
Yeah.
that they used in the Cold War trailer.
Yes, yes, it was.
Like that was my only like downside was like I kind of wanted more like pop music, you know, like sort of like I loved the music that we got of like this earnest like Steve Trevor like exploring stuff and like childhood wonder, but I think some of it might have been cool with like a 80s synth pop track leads in it and stuff.
That's what I was hoping for. I think because I don't know, I think because partly I've just played Black Ops Cold War or like for a long time. I was kind of hoping for it to really lean into the 80s stuff. It kind of felt like it was very 80s at the beginning, and then that kind of started to trail off to like
I feel like they
middle of the
didn't
film.
want to overplay it a little bit too much. Like, don't make it too much of like a cringy nostalgia fest. Although I did want
Would have been good,
that
though.
scene when she's literally riding the lightning. Ride the Lightning came out in 1983. Why didn't they play Metallica's Ride the Lightning? That would have been such a cool fucking thing.
Could you, oh god, like imagine watching Wonder Woman and then Metallica comes on.
Yeah, fucking do it. Like,
It'd be cool, but I'd be like,
if
whoa.
that had led into like an epic, well, it did lead into like an epic fight. Like,
Yeah.
if that was like that would get you fucking pumped. I mean,
Yeah,
that's coming from two Metallica fans though, so
Oh, I agree with you. I get it.
like when somebody literally rides the lightning, you want to hear Ride the Lightning.
Yeah. Give it
Anyway.
to me.
You sounded like Arnie then.
Come
on, give it to
get to the chopper. There was a lot of
Come
getting
on,
to the
Wonder
chopper in
Woman.
this film.
Get this man a chopper. Fucking Chadwick Boseman came back to reprise his role as get this man to a chopper. Oh, that's another film that's come out recently, getting reviews. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I haven't seen it released yet, but I've seen reviews coming out for it. Anyway. Should we actually get into some spoiler territory for Wonder Woman
Yeah,
now?
we're getting into spoiler territory. I think I already spoilt it, so it's. I already said there was nukes. Right, what do you want to talk about first in terms of spoilers?
Should we talk about like the MacGuffin of the film first, so that people got a basis?
Oh
of it?
yeah. Let me explain.
So,
Let me explain more about my criticism that I had earlier. So the criticism that I had that the MacGuffin that I didn't like was the whole wishing thing, and I get that was the point of it, that you wished into the stone, and Maxwell Lord was the stone, but all
I thought that was really smart.
that was incredibly
That was an
smart.
interesting twist. He was like, I wish I was the stone. I was like, big brain plays.
Yeah, I had no
200
problems.
IQ.
I had no problems with that part. My part was that all it took was everybody to renounce the wishes to fix it. Like, I don't know, like it just felt a bit cheese. And
I mean, I liked
Yeah.
I liked that because like it made it more of like an emotional, personal choice. It wasn't just how hard you could punch the situation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it would have been better if we saw more people renounce the wish other than just Maxwell. Like he renounced his wish, and that was what undid everything because he was the catalyst for everything.
Yeah,
I think if we had saw a few more people renounce it,
I just think it felt a bit Disney fairy tale to me. I think that's what I was, but I think that's because the last Wonder Woman film was when World War One. You know what I mean? It was just, and that was like I say, that's my expectations that were wrong. You know, like don't shoot the messenger, please. But yeah, the MacGuffin was cool. For the beginning, and then to me it got a bit odd at the end. But yeah,
I think the bit that I didn't like about the whole wish thing was the fact that like Max was basically just making wishes. It was like, oh, you wish that for me, don't you? It was like I would have liked to see him be a bit more charming, like because like in like the second and third act, he's basically just like a madman running around like sweating, bleeding, and stuff like that. And like I would have liked to see him maybe be a bit more charismatic and use that charismatic side that we saw earlier on, instead of him just sweating, just there like I'll fucking give you anything you want. Like he turned into Gollum almost towards the end.
yeah.
Like,
Did you have that feeling that when we were getting, you know, as he was at the end and then he was going a bit crazy? Did you think we were about because they alluded to this god of greed, right? Were you?
Yep.
I was like on the fence thinking, is he going to become a big grey monster god?
I thought maybe we're gonna get like, you know, El Diablo from Suicide Squad, like this god just rips out of him or something.
I was I wouldn't put it past DC for that to have happened.
Okay, so we haven't talked about Cheetah yet, but that fight with Cheetah ended quite quickly. So I thought maybe like because I went into it thinking it was going to end the same way that all superhero films were, just a big punch out against the main villain, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So like instead of like him being talked down, which I really enjoyed, I thought like yeah, like you said, maybe like he was going to turn, like he was going to use all these wishes, and like he was like being manipulated by this god and stuff like that. That like he was going to end up like turning like end up getting shredded or get superpowers himself or something.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting. I was waiting for like a fist fight between Maxwell and Diana.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get why they didn't, and to be honest with you, I'm kind of glad that they didn't.
Yeah, it really set this narrative apart from all of the superhero films. The fact that it was a battle of the minds essentially in the end. It's almost like, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy at the end. Like, it's not a punch out with them against Ronan. It's like their bond as a family and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and like them taking the power upon themselves instead of just like who can punch this guy the hardest.
Yeah, literally.
Like I liked the way that Wonder Woman spoke to Maxwell, and like I liked the twist that she was also being broadcast to everybody through him, and like she literally became like the beacon of hope that she had become in the first film, but she was still sort of like she was a beacon of hope to like a small amount of people that were there to see her, whereas now like she revealed herself to the world, she put herself out there, like she understood that she wasn't alone in the world and stuff like that if she has everybody else around her and like all this sort of stuff, and she was able to speak and reason with the people and stuff like that, while also like talking to Maxwell Lord as well. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, the sneaky lasso of truth round the ankle was a good move.
Yeah, I think maybe if we had seen that a little bit more set up, because for all we could see, the lasso had failed. So maybe like if we had seen that it worked a bit better than that, maybe. Like it felt like well, but like that was sort of like a minor thing to achieve a greater goal. You know what I mean? So I didn't mind it.
No, not at all. Did you feel that the sorry, not I was about to ask you a question that wasn't going to make sense. With the whole flying thing, was it that she learnt to fly, like fly, or was it just that she learnt how to kind of glide through the air? kind of a thing, because that was like they obviously made a point of it because of what Steve said to her about learning to fly, but like she was using the lasso to kind of propel herself, and then she was like kind of gliding.
I think that was her learning it, and then after that, like, she sort of figured out how to fly. Like, she is a god at the end of the... Well, she's a demigod, isn't she?
Yeah.
So, and in certain versions of the character in the comic books, she can fly and stuff like that. And I think that was more... It was... I think maybe she was holding herself back, almost, because she always tied flying to Steve. And it was only once she let go, she realised that being able to fly and being able to do that and having the belief in herself to do that was going to keep the connection to Steve there, instead of being like a sad reminder that he's gone. Like, it was like when she's above the clouds and she can fly, that she's with him and like he's still with her.
Yeah.
Like, that's why, like, when we see her then flying by herself, like, that was like such an emotional thing. Like, we just had Steve leaving again, when she had to renounce and choose to give up Steve this time, which I think we all saw come in straight away. But it didn't make it any easier when it happened. Like, it was really emotional. Like, having somebody leave your life is hard enough, but having to choose for somebody to leave your life is even harder. So then that goes straight into the scene of her learning to fly, and that's her keeping Steve in her life. So I really enjoyed that. Also, speaking of flying, we got the invisible jet, which I never thought we were ever going to see.
That's what I was about to get you to talk about, because you got a bit excited by the invisible jet, didn't you?
It was just such a weird, deep cut, nerdy thing that I was like, what? They're actually doing this? Like that was like the one big moment in this film. I was like, literally, they could do anything at this point. How have they managed to bring in Wonder Woman's invisible jet?
That was, just how she got access to that.
Well, she stole it.
Yeah, but it was just like, she works at a museum. Sorry, not a museum, but
the
where
Smithsonian.
Yeah, but then she just gets access to this fighter pilot, like these fighter jets, and can just access the where that is in the military base.
Well, it wasn't a military base; it was part of the Smithsonian. So the Smithsonian is like, they are basically like the biggest museum, like, archiver of history in America. So they literally, like, they have divisions for everything. Like, they try to archive some sort of history of everything that they can. So that includes like vehicles and stuff like that. You know how like Science and Industry Museum in the UK has like the section dedicated to vehicles and stuff like that. So they have that. So that was like a Smithsonian thing. So because she had a security pass, that's how she got into the building and stuff. Like, although it's not her area. And then they basically just stole it. It wasn't like she just like ran onto a military base and like, oh, I'm going to steal a plane. It's like, oh yes, we have all these jets and stuff like that. And they had some of like World War II planes and stuff like that she probably thought Steve might have gone for, and then he was just there like kid in the candy store like, oh, I'm gonna take a fighter jet.
Yeah. When she was like, just the invisibility thing, like, just
that was a bit like, huh?
Came out of nowhere. Literally, like, hang on. It was like, oh yeah, but my father hid Themyscira. It's like, wait, hang on, your father hid like an entire continent and or whatever, like a civilization. Are you just gonna really quickly reference that and just create an invisible bubble with your hand? And all of a sudden, I was like, all right. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, that's dumb, but it got us the invisible jet, so I'm okay. Because I thought when she went into a hangar, and I was like, we're gonna get some like crappy X-Men thing. It's just there like, oh, this is a super secret ultra high-tech prototype from the 80s where we're trying to perfect invisibility on fighter jets and stuff like that. I thought it was going to be like that, and then they just start flying in a normal jet, and I'm like, okay, we're not getting the invisible jet. And then she's like, oh yes, well, my dad is Zeus, basically. Like, they won't say it, but they keep basically hinting at it. Like, in the first one, it wasn't 100% confirmed, but it was like 99.9% confirmed. And then in this one, she's like, oh yes, my father. He could hide an entire island, so I'm going to hide a fighter jet. It was like dumb, but in a good way.
Yeah, it was. You'd allow it because it was like, okay, I get what you're doing.
Yeah. And after that point, like when they were gonna go see what that Mayan guy or whatever like that, and he's like meant to be like into all like this god stuff and stuff, I was like, oh, watch this now be like a Dr. Fate just appears or something, like a low tier, like it's gonna be this guy that they refer to as a doctor, and then you see Dr. Fate's helmet in the background or something, or Constantine. I was like, oh, like at that point I was like, they could do anything.
Just like a real quick light reference to it.
Yeah, because we had like started to get teasers of like Brother Eye being in there and stuff. I loved the way his eye started to distort and stuff like that. And I was like, is that a hint to Brother Eye? Because Maxwell Lord always uses Brother Eye. I was like, And then like when they were talking about it, I was like, wait, is that satellites on that board in the background? And then when I was like, okay, they didn't call it Brother Eye, but it did the same sort of thing. I was like, fair play, they're doing it. They know where this character is from.
I was surprised there wasn't any kind of... I mean, you already had a lot between Maxwell Lord, Cheetah, Wonder Woman. You had all the, Steve Trevor back. But I was surprised that they didn't go a little bit heavier on the references to the wider DC universe.
At this point in the 80s, there isn't really much else in that DC universe because everything sort of starts in the 2000s, doesn't it?
Yeah, true, yeah.
True. And also, I think when they were writing the script for this, they sort of didn't know where things stood at the time. So I was like, it kind of made sense that it kind of left it untouched. I think it doesn't make sense as much that nukes get fired, nukes keep appearing and disappearing, and literally the whole world went to shit, and yet doesn't seem to have changed the world in any way in all the other DC films, which is why I think it sort of stands on itself at the moment.
Yeah, but that's
also
because...
it's never really had chance to come up in the other DC films.
Well, that's because the world's got physical plot armor on, Chris, so you can't just all of a sudden have the world blow up by nukes because it's the 80s and it's in the past.
Well, no, I wasn't expecting it to get blown up, but it was like never in any of the films was like, do you remember all that time that like 100,000 nukes were launched around the world?
Remember when everybody went crazy and everyone got all the wishes granted?
Do you remember when some random guy just owned a nuclear weapon? No, that was a thing. Do you remember when walls got built up around Cairo?
And then they just disappeared.
Yeah, they just crumbled and made a new river. Yeah, but it's like also like that's the thing when you're doing prequels. It's like how many times has stuff like that happened in Marvel and stuff like that, where it's just there like, oh yes, this massive world changing event happened before, but nobody mentioned it afterwards.
No. Yeah, that's a big
because
Marvel
we only
thing.
decided in the future that we wanted something to happen in the past. Time travel. That's the next thing they need to do to explain everything is just time travel. Well, I mean, we got the Flash coming up, so
yeah, the Flash will probably reference a lot of the stuff. Oh, imagine if they go back to the 80s and they see all that stuff happening, and then he's like, "But nobody mentioned this in my timeline." But what else?
Should we talk about Cheetah? We haven't really talked about Cheetah yet in that transformation.
Oh yeah. So I really enjoyed, like I said, I really enjoyed Kristen Wiig's performance in this, and I really enjoyed the Barbara performance for the most part throughout the beginning of it. The Cheetah transformation, it's not for very long, is it? You don't. I mean, it looks cool.
That's what I thought. Like that fight was very short and hard to follow. That's my one downside. Like the editing and that was way too hard to follow. It's like they wasted the Cheetah, like actual embodiment of Cheetah, and the like the Golden Eagle armor.
Yeah, but the other
Like,
thing
they
is,
both felt a bit
yeah,
wasted.
the other thing is because the cheetah thing was granted from a wish, and if we're going off comic book logic right now, the actual cheetah thing is actually a curse, isn't it? Isn't it the curse of the cheetah or something? I remember you telling
Yeah.
me about.
Yeah. Especially nowadays, like, it's definitely like it's a curse, but it's a curse that Barbara has now chosen to keep, because like she feels as long as she has the curse, she's protecting other people from having this curse because somebody needs to have it. So she's sort of like a tortured villain at the moment. She's not so much as like a evil maniacal villain anymore.
But
I think
because it's a wish, you haven't got that potential of it coming back now, I guess.
Well, I'm confused by this. So we saw at the end that it was undone, but she made that wish on the stone before Max absorbed the stone. So I don't know whether that could be like a loop to bring it back. Like, Diana renounced her wish, but Cheetah Barbara never did. Hers, it just sort of faded after Max renounced his.
Mm.
Although because the wish before that was that she wanted to be more like Diana, didn't she? Whereas then the wish to become Cheetah was afterwards. She got that from Max as a second wish, didn't she?
Yeah, because she wanted to be an apex predator.
Yeah,
that was her.
So
did she?
I don't know.
So did she unwish the apex predator bit, or did she unwish the whole lot?
I'm guessing the way they're gonna work it, like the Dreamstone is out of play now, so everything got reverted.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So I don't know if we would ever see Cheetah again. We could possibly see Barbara again and have them as more of like the friendship role that they had before Barbara turned into the Cheetah.
Yeah.
Which I really liked their friendship and I liked their relationship. And I liked the fact that although like this is meant to be like an empowering story for women and stuff like that, Patty Jenkins is also not afraid to make a woman a villain in this as well.
Yeah.
And we see that to begin with, she's a victim of circumstance, and that's why she starts to become a villain. Like, she's sort of like downtrodden, and that's why she becomes like that until it gets to a point where the greed takes over, and that was like one of the main themes in the film that we talked about was greed and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So she like, it was the whole thing about absolute power corrupts absolutely, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So when you can have any wish, literally, like, you are like the ultimate being. That's what happened to Maxwell Lord. Like, he got everything that he wanted, but he wasn't content with that. At that point, he could have everything, so he wanted everything. And she, like, Barbara sort of had the same thing. Like, she became this like super attractive, like the thing is, the thing that she wished for in her first wish, she had all that anyway. The only extra thing was getting Diana's superpowers.
Yeah, but it was more about the perception that people had of her, right? That was
exactly. And I think that was a really interesting narrative that they went for. Like, they weren't afraid to tell that sort of narrative. That it was like, in any other film, like, it would probably be criticized that, oh, she had to make a wish to be like this super sexy character and all that sort of stuff. But to begin with, she doesn't. She just starts changing a few things, and she finds confidence in herself, and that's why she starts to change until the wish starts to take hold and takes the negative turn as well.
Yeah, and that bit's pretty. I'd say that bit's probably done in quite good taste, because that could have been a bit
exactly.
cringe.
Like, in most other films, it would probably be criticized, but the way they handled it, I think, was pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
I do think that final transformation, though, was a bit wasted. Like, maybe if we saw a bit of a slower transformation. Yeah. What do you think about Diana losing her powers?
It added that added stakes. That was good. And the bit that I was talking about at the very beginning was the bit where she gets like proper KO'd by Barbara in the White House. And that bit, like I said, it added stakes to what was going on.
Well, you saw complete role reversals, didn't you? Like, Diana at the beginning of the film when she saved Barbara and stuff like that, and like Barbara, like Diana puts herself, like, she knows she's more powerful than Barbara and stuff like that. So like, they had opposite ends of the relationship, and then in that point, Barbara, like, Diana was where Barbara was at the beginning of the film, and it showed a difference of how Diana treated Barbara to how Barbara treated Diana once she was in that position of power. But also it is a trope in superhero books and stuff like that, or like anything really on like the hero's journey type thing of like at some point you have to do a story where they lose all the powers and they strip back to basics because it's the only way that you could get like a new threat. Like once they're more powerful than everything that they've ever encountered, how can they not be powerful? It's to strip them back completely.
Yeah.
So like it was tropey, and I felt like it has been done a million times, but the way they did it and the way that she was willing for that to happen to keep Steve for so long until he was like although you get me, like the world loses you. So I think that was like a good way of twisting both those narratives together. I was Diana sort of realizing that like she doesn't have to be defined by a lost love. She can still carry on her life and stuff like that and carry on afterwards, and like that is something that gives her strength, is her love for Steve.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And like you said, it did add stakes as well. Like it wasn't just typical, just there like, oh, they need to lose all the powers, but then they learn that the power was in them all along. It's like that's not what that story was.
Yeah. No, yeah. What else do we talk about with this film?
It didn't end with a big fight against a grey monster surrounded by smoke. It just ended with a very dark fight against Cheetah that was edited way too closely and tightly.
No, it ended as a Christmas film. Did you not pick up on that?
It did, and I kind of loved that. Like I wasn't sure if like maybe that was maybe a reshoot or something. Like when they figured out that it might have been releasing at Christmas time, and obviously everything's happening in the world and stuff like that. It like felt like a nice beacon of joy. Like that world had just been through something traumatic, and you saw how everybody gathered together and like the happiness of being together, and like you saw loads of families in that final moment, and like Diana is meant to feel alone again like she did at the end of the first one, but she finds happiness in that instead of sad for being alone. Now she's happy with the world around her and stuff like that, and she finds the other guy that Steve like possessed the body of. Yeah, like it felt like a nice sort of like this is sort of what our world's going through. It's going through something traumatic. Can at the end of it we all come together and have like this big family Christmas full of love.
And I think that's a perfect place to end off.
If you need me to write speeches for universities and stuff like that, I am welcome.
But yeah, what about that post-credit sequence, eh?
I fucking loved that so much. So, the post-credits, Linda Carter is the original Amazon who sacrificed her life in the Golden Eagle armor to save the Amazons. And she's just been living in humanity, and it sort of like ties everything together. I was thinking, so I said this to Charlotte after we left, I was like, I knew Patty Jenkins had finally got Linda Carter in this film, but I didn't see her, and I was like, maybe I just missed a blink as you miss it cameo, you know, like with all like the crowd shots and all that sort of stuff. I was like, oh, maybe I just missed it. But then like that post credits, I was like, that's like how they make you think it's Diana, but it's not. It's not Gal Gadot. It's our original Linda Carter Wonder Woman.
But she is cast as Asteria then, really, isn't she?
Yeah.
So it's cool. She's officially canon.
She is officially canon, and that it just filled my heart with joy. That like I used to watch the Wonder Woman Linda Carter show like around at my grandparents, and you know like dreary, rainy Sunday afternoons and stuff like that. Like that's when I remember watching it with my nan and granddad and stuff like that. So that was a nice little moment for me.
Cool. And I think that's where we leave it for the week. Wow, we've not had news or trailers, and we've talked for an hour.
I think we did a pretty good job actually discussing a film for a change instead of having loads of news and having to rush the main subject.
Maybe
it was good, that.
I know, it was good. It was a bit of a deep dive, really, wasn't it?
It was.
Right.
We got deep into that film. We were like, oh, it's a superhero film, but we're not talking about the kicking and the punching.
No. What we will talk about is that's it for the year. That's it, mate. Next podcast we record will be 2021.
Start of season 2.
This is it. This is the official end of Get Real season 1.
Yeah, you could think of it that
I
way.
mean, maybe. I mean, I always find it weird how podcasts do seasons.
It's only really been a thing in like the last like 6 months, really,
Yeah.
hasn't it? Seasons.
We'll just call.
I don't think.
How about we call it the second generation?
I mean, we're a film and TV podcast, so it would have to be the next generation, not the second generation.
It could be. It could be called the. This could have been the prequel trilogy,
Oh,
and maybe next year is the original trilogy.
so we need to record stuff that was released back in 2019. Is that what you're saying?
No, we need to go back
Wait.
further.
Wait, no, yeah, that wouldn't make sense anyway, because this is the prequel, but this is current times. So we would need to do something that's in the future.
You've got to remember, Chris. It's always been a Star Wars podcast.
Always had me.
Right. We hope you've all had a great Christmas, and we hope you all have an amazing New Year.
Merry New Year.
Considering the circumstances at the moment, please try and make the most of it, and be safe as well. That's us done for the year. Thank you very, 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 very much from the very bottom of both mine and Chris's hearts. If you've kept with us since,
You don't know what's at the bottom of my heart, Sam.
Okay, from the bottom of my heart and from somewhere around Chris's, for sticking
Void
with
where
us.
I used to have one.
For sticking with us. If you've been with us for the full thing,
The long haul.
the long haul. If you've been with us for the long haul, thank you. If you've just joined us, thank you. And make sure you support us across all the socials. Get Real Pod. Make sure you share us with a mate. You know what? You know where you can check us out. You know where to do all that this week. I just wanted to say a big thank you for
Genuinely,
a year.
thank you. Like, I don't think if we hadn't got the support and like the listeners that we had done, that we wouldn't still be going a year later. And it does fill my heart with joy to see that we've made it a full year. So here's for 4 more years.
4 more years.
4 more years. 6 seasons of the movie. I'm watching Community at the moment, and that's a relevant reference for me.
Maybe we'll get that sweet VPN sponsor the next year.
Oh,
Chris.
NordVPN, hit us up.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor,
not
but
a
we want you to
sponsor.
be.
Anyway,
So that we can watch films from Australia and stuff.
and be internet safe.
Yes.
That's the most
Anyway,
important
they're
thing.
not a sponsor. They're not a sponsor. Let's not give them any more promotion. But you never know, guys. If you share us out enough and we get popular enough, maybe we can get a sponsorship and make this more than just a hobby.
That'd be pretty
Because this
crazy.
is just a hobby for us at the moment. We do love doing it.
Yeah, it is a hobby at the minute. We do this because we love doing it, and we talk about films anyway. So we may as well whack a microphone in front of us and talk about it while we can share it out with other people, maybe like-minded people. I don't know. Maybe people listen to this and then think, "Who are these two idiots? They're not qualified enough to talk about."
These guys like the new Wonder Woman film.
They're not qualified enough to talk about bloody films and TV shows and. But maybe we just resonate with you just about enough.
Just enough. Yeah.
Just enough. And that's all we want. Take care, guys. We'll see you in 2021, and Happy New Year.
Bye-bye now. Stay safe.